Well, here we are. It's the Red Moon Purple Saturn podcast.
Yeah, we haven't been on for a while, y'all. Sorry about that. Life happens.
What aspect of life is happening?
Well, we have been going to some events hosted by Jennifer Quasey. One in particular, well, there's been a few. He's done like two or three events here in Atlanta, the Achi Sign, the Kakaets, and the what was that? What was the other one before that?
We did the Achi-san, the Kakaet. I'm not sure what the other one was called.
Yeah, I don't remember the other one. And then he also had a retreat out in Edison, South Carolina. So we went out there for that. And in the retreat, we had to give a presentation about the institution of marriage, which is what we're coming to y'all to talk to y'all about now, especially in the light of there's a lot of things out there in the media about relationships and certain people's business is getting publicized. So I felt it was, that vibration. Spring is here. People are looking to come out and get into things and meet people, and relationships are going to be springing up all over the place.
It's interesting to see with the cycle that's taking place right now, what things how they're changing right now. How they say, especially for those people who read the Bible, talking about how things that are done in the dark
Come into the light.
come
Yeah.
into the light, and we're coming out of the winter, into the spring, out of the rest phase into the springing forward, and an animated and lively type of phase, the light essentially. So I guess this is, well, I mean, to be candid, we're talking about Derek Jaxn. Essentially, we're talking. I guess we're doing a lot of implying, or without being very forthcoming.
Well, it's not just
not,
Jaxn.
it's not just him, but
it's just the nature of this is a time. I mean, it's like what you said. What goes in the dark comes out in the light. But it's just a time that people coming out of their house. We just came out of that winter rest season, and people who've had relationships going into it are coming out of relationships now that it's springtime. I'm gonna be real. And there are some who didn't have relationships in the winter, and now they're coming out hoping they can catch them one. So
yeah, everybody wants to be in a relationship, and,
yeah,
in one way or another. But
and
I guess a lot of people really don't feel this way, but I feel like relationships are for healthy people. And I ain't just talking about physical health. Of course, I'm talking about mental health, talking about spiritual health, talking about balance in general. And I think people have a habit of getting themselves involved with other people who they consider to be broken, and they consider themselves to be broken as well. And they think that because we're two broken people, we can heal each other, or whatever the philosophy is. It never really works out that way. Relationships, especially marriage, for healthy people, and it can't be one sided either. You can't have one side that's healthy and the other side that needs to be healed. Then they come to you as you're supposed to be their doctor, their healer, and their lover, and their friend. And there's only so much you can be for a person. That a lot of that work has to be done by that individual. It's an individual journey. Of course, it's communal. Of course, you have help. Of course, you have the assistance within the community that you need. But I don't think it's ever a good idea to try to put all of that compound energy on one person's shoulders because they're the person that you're laying with. That's going to stress that person out. That's going to take energy away from the actual blossoming of the relationship, because the relationship can't blossom when you have one individual who's rooted a certain way in the soil, and another individual who's rooted differently, and the very direction that they're growing in doesn't match, doesn't add up together. So I think a lot of that has to be taken into consideration, and unfortunately it isn't. We don't look at our roots. We don't look at the health of the soil that we're rooted in. We don't look at the conditions that we are sprouting into. We don't look at the conditions that we're trying to, blossom and flower into. We just kind of think that we can, just force things to work a certain way, and it doesn't happen like that. You have to be in tune with and in alignment with the reality of your condition.
Yeah, and to be in the reality of your condition, that means you have to um, just be accountable. I mean, that's just the bottom line. When you are self aware and accountable of where you're at, you do start taking into consideration um, the things that come with you. You know, we all have some level of baggage, we all have certain experiences that shape us. And I'm not saying that, you know, what you have compared to somebody else still can't work if you've kind of like opposites, because I know people like to say opposites attract, but I really don't think that's really true. I mean, I think at the root of each individual, you have similarities and you're in the same mindset of where you're going and headed the same direction, but how you guys express that is different. You know, that may be something that's different. I don't think I truly feel like, you know, what's good for the goose is what's good for the gander. You know, like calls alike, and if you're too opposing at the root of who you are, both parties, it makes a lot of challenges in a relationship. So yeah, being accountable and then communication. Um, you know, our expectations of what we have in a relationship in ourselves and the other party. I feel like we need to communicate those things. I feel like people should not be coming together if your expectations are differently, um, so different that you think, oh well, we could just make this work along the way. Not really. I mean, you know, because just like, you know, JoJo had said, you're putting a lot on one end of on one party in the relationship, depending on the direction you're trying to go. Either you're going to feel like you're compromising a lot and not having what your expectations are fulfilled, or you're feeling like you're constantly holding on and waiting for somebody else to get to where you are.
It also reinforces the notion of individualism.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you're in a relationship with a person for any number of years, you still feel like your your state of mind and your well being is pretty much on your shoulders. And you know, regardless of what the other person is doing, you have to maintain and manage, which is true. But we also have to realize that the actions and the state of mind and the energy and the vibration of the person that you spend the majority of your time with is going to affect you.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to be accountable for the way they affect you. And yes, you are ultimately responsible or accountable for, you know, the way that you carry out your life and the atmosphere that you live in the energy that you project and take in and whatnot. But if you're going to fuse yourself with a person, then both of you are responsible and have to be accountable for the vibration that you create as a unit.
Mm-hmm. And that means, I'm sorry, I
No,
don't mean to
ahead.
cut you
No.
off, but that means every step of the way having checkpoints, because I understand we always make plans, regardless if it's no matter what it's in, whether it's in work, individually or collectively as a group. And sometimes when life happens, those plans may take on a different course. But still, no matter what, you should still be having checkpoints and checking in to make sure this is something that you both want, or the direction that you're going that you both are okay with. I feel like, especially, and I can't necessarily say men don't feel this way, but I know from a woman's perspective, you know, when we're in relationships with men, and I've been guilty of this too, we tend to want to be whatever that person wants us to be, or do whatever that person wants us to do, and not really express what we really want in that moment. Or maybe we did have, you know, an agreement, and as we start seeing how things are actually coming together and how things are actually blossoming and blooming, we recognize this may not really be exactly what I had in mind. So it's like, you know, when you're taking those checkpoints and making sure everything's cool, and seeing how the other person, you know, where they're at, and being honest about it. You know, don't just be like, oh well, you know, I kind of thought this, but that's okay. No, truly be honest about it. You know, because when you're not being honest about it, you know, things happen in the relationship that now you and that other person are upset about, or resenting each other because you weren't honest with each other about it.
You don't want to be a potential Zamundan queen. I was just saying, whatever you like.
Oh no,
What do you want to do? Whatever you want to do.
nah,
What do you like? Whatever you like.
no. I mean, I don't want to be mindless. I don't. I mean, when we got together, that was before we even truly. I mean, we expressed interest into each other, but when we really started thinking about, well, I'm interested in you, you're interested in me. We both asked each other things and saying, okay, this is what my intention is in a relationship. What is your intention? This is what I expect from my partner in a relationship. What do you expect? I mean, we actually had that kind of conversation, and we're very candid about it.
A lot of people do have that conversation, but there also comes the fact that you have to be rooted in actual reality when you're having these conversations. People have conversations that are important all the time, but there's always a distortion if a person's philosophy isn't in line with reality. And we have a lot of that among black people, among African people. Yeah, we have hard conversations, but how much can we accomplish with those hard conversations when what's filtering through our minds is essentially bullshit? Whether it's economic philosophy or political philosophy or religious, spiritual philosophy, if that is ultimately bullshit, then the outcome of the conversation that we're having, no matter how serious it is or what our intentions in, is going to be bullshit just the same.
Well, I guess I will agree with you on that one, but I guess that's where the example comes out where you're talking about where your philosophy's at and what you're rooted in, because the way that we do things based on our cosmology, based on our African traditional religion, is that we understand our thoughts, intentions, and actions must all line up and must be rooted to make sure that we have the desired outcome. And we could tell based on how things are coming out if we were truly planted or rooted in that thought, intention, and action based on what comes out of it. So, when we had that conversation, I guess it goes back in line to what you just said. Our reality was in line with what we actually saw. We knew there were going to be challenges. We knew that whatever our expectations were, we had to both put in the effort to make sure we saw that through. And even be honest if we realize, well, maybe that's not exactly what I meant. Let me try to have a better idea. Or even being honest and saying, I really don't know. But you can't have expectations if you yourself are not living up to those expectations or trying to put in that energy to make sure that you make it come forth. I mean, that's where I feel like when you say it's bullshit, that's where that comes from. People have this grandiose idea of themselves or are consciously unaware of themselves. And I say that because I think people intentionally do not be self-aware at times. And there's certain things about yourself that you may not be self-aware of. And it's genuine. It shows. Like, you don't recognize maybe how you may address people when you hear certain things or when people come to you about a certain situation, or that you've always responded to certain things in your life a certain way and you didn't recognize that was a pattern that you were continuing to perpetuate. But there are times when there's stuff when people tell you in a relationship. I mean, no matter how many different relationships you've been in, you are the only common denominator in that relationship. So I'm pretty sure there's something that has been repetitive that others have told you about yourself, and you are not trying to listen to that and go and try to act like that's not actually how you are when that truly is how you are. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you do have to be rooted, truly be rooted into awareness of yourself and have the right philosophy. But it also does go back to when you say relationships are for healthy people, because if you got some real psychosis going on, your self-perception is going to be really off.
Yeah, the drama that is created by the relationship is only going to drive you further down into your psychosis. Just as an example, the sister getting on the live talks talking about her bonnet is a helmet of whatever, and her camouflage is a breastplate of this and that, and all this and that. It's like she was already descending into madness before this dude put that stress on her, and the stress only sent her further into that descent into madness. And because the philosophy that she lives her life with it creates the conditions for a person to descend into madness. You have to be I mean, bottom line is Christianity, Islam, all those things condition a black person's mind to be mad, to be out of their mind, because that's the condition your mind has to be in for you to be controlled the way we are controlled. You have to be out of your mind. You have to. I call it a controlled insanity. I call it controlled insanity because it's the kind of insanity and dysfunction that white people need you to have, and they create the circumstances for you to have in order for them to be able to manipulate you and exploit you. So you're out of your mind, but you're out of your mind to a degree that you can be exploited by another people for the purpose of being exploited by another people, and that's why it was so easy for him to exploit her, because her mind was already conditioned for that with Christianity.
Yeah, and then just also her her idea of herself as a woman, her idea of herself as her self worth and validation. Um, you know, I my heart goes out to that sister on some degree, because I've listened to what she said, and yes, you could see, just like JoJo had pointed out, there's a level of psychosis that was already there and it's being perpetuated. But I just feel like if she doesn't come out of this, and she probably, even what was leading up to that level of this, because apparently they have been together for quite some time, and she's often tried to take ideas from his over sexualization and his experiences that he's expressed, because this is not the first time he's been messing around. So it's just because of where he's at in his career, or what he's made of himself, or whatever you want to say. It's a little different. It's a little more out there, but this is not the first time that she's dealt with this kind of stuff. And
it's all fantasy.
Well, yeah,
it's all fantasy.
But what I'm saying is, this is a sister who's not being honest about who she is, getting to know herself, caring for herself, feeling herself to be worthy, and wants to cover it up with her faith. Mm-hmm. And granted, it is what it is, but it's not getting to the heart of the matter. You're not addressing how you truly are feeling in the situation. You're not addressing addressing you. Like, you're not healthy. And for someone like himself, and he's not the only man who's ever done this to a woman, and there's been women who've done this to men. When you have two unhealthy individuals together, and one seems to be more codependent than the other, and the other one seems to be more manipulative than the other, it makes for this unhealthy codependent relationship that happens, or a parasitic relationship that happens, a level of symbiosis that happens, to where one is feeding off of the other, and neither one of y'all are developing or growing. Neither one of y'all are maturing into the man and woman that you are meant to be. And that is not good.
No, of course not. Especially when we have to take into consideration the fact that somebody has to be exploited. Somebody has to be objectified. That's the way America works. That's how we're brought up in this country. That's what capitalism essentially is. You objectify a particular thing, and you exploit it for everything that it's worth, and then you move on to something else. And that's exactly how people approach each other. That's how people approach relationships. You objectify this person, and you exploit them. That's what it is. And until we really start to deal with the type of Negroes we've been created to be in this society, we're going to have relationships that fail perpetually, because there's no way you can expect your relationship to be healthy and to be sustainable when you take that Eurocentric capitalism, objectification, exploitation type of philosophy not only into your relationship but into every aspect of your life. We have a use and throw away type of philosophy and type of mentality that we carry into everything we do. That's why this country is so full of not only waste when it comes to garbage, but waste when it comes to people.
Yeah, and this is also because we take on the identity of a people, or entities rather, that are not not us. You know,
Not human.
truly to be of African descent or to claim that you're African or black, um, you know, the original people, um, we have a level of interconnectedness with creation, and that means all of creation. That means animal life, plant life, human life, um, the planets, the sun, moon, stars, everything that truly exists that has been created in nature. We have a level of interconnectedness. And so when we see ourselves as part of a community. And that's how we look at it individually. And then when we come together, whether it be two of us, three of us, or more, we see it as how can our individual person help each person that we have come in contact with, how they can help us, and how we can help the entire community. So when you have that kind of mindset, you do become aware that you yourself, the decisions that you make affect others. Even if you are responsible for yourself and those others are responsible for themselves, you still, all parties are aware that the life that you live and the choices that you make affect someone else, whether it be negative or positive. It's just how we are and how we be. And then also in that, when you have that kind of identity, when you have that kind of awareness, you do not allow yourself to not care for yourself. And I'm not saying it's all about how you feel physically. I'm talking about your internal universe, how you feel internally, you know, because you show how you care about yourself based on what you put into your mind, what you tell yourself, what you feed yourself both physically and spiritually, the kind of people that you're around, the kind of environments that you like to be in, how you treat the planet. That shows in your health. So if you're not healthy, that shows. If you are healthy, that shows. If you're working on it, that shows. So, you know, I say all that to say is that, you know, when we don't deal with our identity and who we are, of course, we take on an identity of someone else, and in this context, the American way, and we think it's me, I, and forget about you. I'm gonna do my thing, and then whatever I want, I'm gonna just, you know, take this from that person or take this from this thing or that entity and make it work for me. And it doesn't matter what the consequences may be, whether they're positive or negative consequences. And that's not Africanness. It's not.
There's only so much you can take as well. That's something else to keep in mind. If you are a person who's earnestly trying to change and reshape their mind out of Eurocentric philosophy and out of disorder, you have to realize that there's a lot of it that we encounter that's out of our hands, especially if you work. If you work, you're going to encounter Eurocentric philosophy, you know, at least 8 hours a day. And then if you go home and put it on your TV, you're getting 2 or 3 more hours. And then if you live with this person or these people who think like that, well, then you're getting the extent, you know, of your entire life. 24 hours a day, you're getting just nothing but Eurocentric philosophy, which is essentially disorder, decay, chaos, and madness. That's essentially what everything Eurocentric is. So my advice in that situation would be to eliminate it where you can. Get away from people who reinforce Eurocentric philosophy, disorder, chaos, madness, dysfunction, disorder. Get away from those people because you're going to have to deal with it when you go out into the world. So you for sure you need to get it out of your house. You have to get it out of the place where you go to rest and find peace. It has to be eliminated from that situation. One of the first things I did when I came back into my African mind, when I reverted back to my African self, was I got rid of my TV. I threw it out. I gave it away. I got rid of cable. I got rid of all those things. And I'll tell you what's going next is probably going to be Facebook and Instagram. Because every you know, I figured that, you know, you can get rid of the television, but if you go on Facebook and you're seeing the same things, there's really no point in getting rid of the television if you're going to be influenced the same way over social media. But anyway, it's very, very important to, you know, erase or, you know, excise those influences in the people who reinforce the madness everywhere that you can, because that's going to be a big step in, you know, getting back to yourself and your overall healing. You definitely don't want to go home to the same madness that you have to face when you leave your home.
And that's the other thing. You know, I don't care if it's blood relatives. I don't care if it is a best friend that you've known for a long time.
Out of here.
Or if you're actually married and been married for a long time to somebody and y'all have children together. If they are stealing your energy, taking away from your peace and your joy to the point that you are out of your mind, that you feel like you're about to have a personal, mental breakdown, that you want to die slowly or quickly, however you want to, where you're just in that negative space, you need to get rid of them. Bottom line, it's time to go. Because the only person who's going to save you is you. No Jesus, no Muhammad, no Buddha. I mean, I know we know about entities, the Abosom and those who are Yoruba, the Orisha, but those deities, those entities, they tell us this is what you need to do to take care of you. So if you're not going to take care of you, then you're going to stay in that same state and space with people who aren't going to get you anywhere. They're sucking you dry.
Yeah, and then don't get it confused. Like the Vodou, the Orisa, the Abosom, they have their function.
Yes.
They have their they essentially they have their job. They have their work to do, and they don't exist to do your work for you. You're in this vessel. You're animating this flesh. This is your life, your work. So you have to do your work. And yes, they will assist you. Yes, the ancestors and ancestresses will assist you. That's part of their work. But your life is your work. You have to do your work. Period. So don't act like I'm not being the gods aren't helping me, the angels, Jesus. Yes, it's always somebody else's fault. No. This is you. This is your journey. Yeah, we all may have had some rough upbringings, may have had some disadvantages coming up that we can still harp on and say, well, this is why I'm this way, or this is why things in my life are this way. But my thing is this: if you can see it, then you can change it. If you can see it and point to it and say, this is why, well, then there's no reason for you to remain a victim of it. There's no way you can be aware of what your issues are and not understand how, well, even if you don't understand how to change them, you can't be aware of what your issues are and still be a victim of them. I don't understand how somebody can put those two things together. You can point to the problem and still let the problem assault you.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, there is power in naming a thing. There is power into creating your own definitions and being accountable to things, and not allowing yourself to continue to be boxed into a situation that's untenable. No one wants. I mean, we all want a level of pleasure and peace and joy and happiness in our life. But we also know sometimes rain is going to come. Sometimes we're going to be under certain pressures that causes us to grow, to make us change. I mean, that's a part of life, the good and the bad and the different. But there's no point in living life if you're going to be miserable. There's no point. You can call down the angels of heaven and the fires and of whatever all you want to. You can call on the Orisha, the Abosom, the Nananom Samanfo, the Egungun, whoever. And that's not going to make a difference if you're not willing to take those steps to change. I mean, I understand. I think the biggest thing that people have an issue with, and one reason why they always want to be in relationships, is because they feel that loneliness that gets to them. My husband likes to joke and call it lonelyosis. Make it a condition. But that loneliness that's only a state of mind. That's truly not real. I mean, you can be alone, but if you are alone and doing what you feel that you're doing in your life and actually having a good life, living a good ethical life, so what? Your partner will be, they may come into some point in time in your life based on where you have gotten yourself to be, where you will meet them and where you're supposed to be at. You don't have to look a certain way or be a certain way for the right one, because they will be there.
Yeah, loneliness shouldn't usher you into bullshit. I think there's people who deal with loneliness, and they're genuine about it. There are people who have actually done the work to get their mind and their body and their spirit in alignment, who still experience a bit of loneliness from here to there, but they're not going to allow that to usher them straight into a disordered situation, into a dysfunctional situation with an individual who's not on par with them, because they want somebody, to be laying with them at night, So that's just another dose of that reality that we live in, to where, yeah, you may deal with a little bit of loneliness from time to time, even if you have gotten yourself together mentally and spiritually. But as just to reiterate, that's not going to drive you directly into a dysfunctional situation just for the sake of not feeling that every once in a while. Because even if you get into the dysfunctional situation, you may still experience the loneliness, because if this person isn't meeting you on your level, and you can't have the types of conversations and the types of interactions that you want to have with this person, because they're just not there mentally or spiritually, well, then you're going to be just as lonely as you were before you got with this idiot.
If not worse.
If not worse. And there's a lot of stuff that we consider to be part of our culture that is not part of our culture, and there's a lot of stuff that we accept that we need to be rejecting because we think it's a part of our culture when it's not. So just something else to be aware of, other things to be cagey about, what we allow into our life and what we allow into our house, because the majority of black people are doing it. That doesn't make it part of our culture. The majority of black people smoke weed, and they will make you think that weed smoke is part of our heritage. Like, we've been doing this since time, what's time immemorial, whatever the term is, since forever, whatever the term. We've been doing this forever, but no, we have not. Being high is not an essential part of African culture, African spirituality. So that's just one example, but there's plenty of things and philosophies that people carry with them that they will say that this is us, this is inherently us. Like, no, it's not.
That's true. So do we want to talk about some of the steps that we've made individually before we got together?
Well, I mean, individually, for me, it was accountability. It was. I think when I really got ready to cross over that threshold, for me, it was realizing that I was going to have to be alone for a little while. I was going to have to throw away certain things and certain people. I was going to not get rid of certain people who came with certain things if I was going to cross that threshold to get into the state of mind and the state of spirituality that I wanted to be in. And for me, that was a difficult thing to realize, because of, like I said, we have different things that we grow up with and different hardships and conditions that we have due to the way that we were brought up. And there's just certain experiences that we don't want to experience anymore, like loneliness, like, solitude and things like that, things that are actually necessary to go into the next phase. Every tree, well, not every tree, but the majority of trees all lose their leaves and their fruits and their flowers and go into a period of rest before they come out on the other side, thriving again. So there's always this period of, you can say it's death, whatever you want to call it. But, there's death and there's resurrection. There's the two portals of life, the death gate and the birth gate. And neither one of them actually lead to, the end of life. People see death and they see it as the end, but no, that's not the end. But anyway.
Yeah, that's just the end of one cycle.
That's just the end of one cycle. Well, yeah, but that's essentially what I'm talking about. I'm talking about cycles are going to come. They come naturally. They come every year. We have seasons and we have cycles, and we can take and align with those seasons and cycles, and we can take and harness the energy of those seasons and cycles and use those toward recalibrating or realigning ourselves. And you'll find that very naturally your body, your mind, and your spirit will push you towards realigning during these cycles and during times of particular weather and whatnot. Like we had the serious thunderstorm that rolled through here, and I'm pretty sure there were people who had an urge or an impulse to do some sort of ritual or to clean the house or to end a relationship or to go from one phase to the next phase because that's a natural cycle. That's a natural inclination that the world, the universe is moving through at that time in this particular area of the universe. So it's like we have to realize what's going on and why it's happening. But for me, my run on explanations, but for me, essentially, it was just realizing that I was going to have to let particular cycles come to an end so I can step into the next cycle, and that's still a process. It didn't just end there. It happens all the time. Whenever I have an experience where I get to be around a lot of people who I see are working towards being their best selves, it makes me more contemplative and looking toward what it is I'm supposed to be doing to go from one cycle to the next, to go from one phase to the next. And it really always comes down for me to the control of my own state of mind, the control of my own thoughts, what I'm doing with my mind, what I'm doing with my time. And what you do with your mind and what you do with your time is very, very important because we spend I can't say spend, but waste a lot of our mental fortitude and a lot of our time on things that really don't deserve it. So.
Well, I ain't gonna keep y'all on a long explanation. No, I'm just messing with you, baby.
I will cut this microphone off. I will cut off this microphone and this computer, and you can sit here and talk with your mouth moving, but nobody can hear you.
You wouldn't do that because you're gonna end up posting this video. You're gonna make me look crazy. But anyway, I would say it's the same thing. Accountability, but I also had to. In my accountability, it wasn't just about letting go and letting certain cycles happen. It was also healing, dealing with the stuff that I grew up with, or dealing with the things that I had caused to happen in my life, and actually being accountable to that stuff, and actually either trying to fix it or at least fixing myself in that moment. Those are the big things: accountability, healing, and then I would also say communication. Because I had to learn to actually communicate clearly and effectively what I really wanted. So that took solitude. That took time for me to be like, okay, I need to get away from everyone and everything to be able to get there. I have to, be at my shrine, do some healing work, and or some people say that shadow work, and be able to really figure out what it was that I wanted. I'm gonna be honest though, my husband came along when I was in that process. I wasn't looking for him and I wasn't trying to have him. I thought I was going to have, a long period of time before he and I would cross paths, but it didn't work out that way. And I'm grateful. I mean, I ain't complaining, but, I did at that time understand the value of the solitude and the need to be alone because, it does help you be more clear and be grounded, and that's very important. And just like you said, it is a constant thing because there's still things that I'm still healing. There's still things that I'm still making sure I'm accountable of. There's still things that I'm working to communicate more clearly and effectively about. And the cool thing about it is that when you're in a relationship with someone who understands those things, they also give you that time, that opportunity to go into yourself. They're not trying to overwhelm you with all the stuff in the relationship. They kind of be conscientious, or even if they're not conscientious of it, if you say, look, hold up, pump the brakes. I need to do some stuff for me. I need to be able to ground and get more level. They will understand and be appreciative of that because that also means you'll be working to not affect them in a negative way as well.
Absolutely. Well, this is the Red Moon Purple Saturn podcast. I know I didn't say that at the top like I normally do, but this is the Red Moon Purple Saturn podcast. This is what we do because we're good at it. Yeah, I'm bragging. Bragging on y'all right now. But no, we always appreciate y'all's input and y'all's interaction with us. We appreciate all y'all's support for us, for our union. as many of our close followers, or really our friends, really know, we are about to welcome our first child into the world sometime in August, in early August. Going to be having a young boy.
You gotta give them all the information.
That's going to look just like his mama.
With your big head.
Mm-hmm. Hold on now.
You saw the head in the ultrasound.
I saw the head in the ultrasound. Don't worry about it. All babies have big heads.
Okay, but you never grew out yours.
That's all right. It's all right. One day I'm gonna grow into it. One day I'm gonna grow into it, and there won't be no problems.
I also like to add, outside of the thanks and gratitude of people that we are following, some of the things that we do that could assist in growth into manhood or womanhood. Ajidafo Kwesi Radnahimpata Khan, yes, I said his full name, is doing a 13-week course that there's late registration that's still available to apply for his Obedima course, which is the manhood course, where he talks about certain things from a true historical and cosmological point of view, so we can see in our history where we have always had these things in place to where we can detox from Eurocentric alien cultures to capture our own. And then I am also doing a 13-week course for Obatan, a womanhood course that discusses some of the similar things, some of the information that Ojidifo did put out, and some things that other women in our community have. I've been inspired by their works to discuss certain issues. So, that could be a way to start helping. You could go to www.ojidifo, that's ODWIRAFO.com/Obedima, that's OBARIMA, or www.ojidifo.com/Obatan, that's OBAATAN, where you could register for these courses still, and it could probably, help you start grounding yourself, start doing more for yourself to really crystallize what manhood or womanhood means to you.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to add to this discussion before we bring it to a close on tonight?
No, because we said what we were going to say. I mean, there are comics out there and other people who can say what I want to say a lot more efficiently by being funny about it.
Right, but that kind of takes away from the seriousness of it.
Yeah, because honestly, it's not right to be in a dysfunctional relationship, to be taken advantage of, to, like you were saying before, to go out into the world and have to face certain issues that then when you go home, you got to turn right back around and face those same daggone issues. I mean, right. It's not fair.
And then to be made the laughing stock of, of pretty much Black America,
right?
through social media for at least a week, to a month, or until people decide to, jump onto the next thing, or when something else comes to grab their attention. Because it would have been Kirk Franklin.
Right.
It would have been him and cussing out his son, but fortunately for him, here comes Derek Jaxn, and the other guy, whatever his name is, the one that does the relationship or advice, whatever you want to call it. What's that dude's name? People call him to be berated, essentially. How much do you weigh? What's your dress size? You're a bum. You're no good. All that madness.
How much money you make?
How much money you make?
How big your dick is?
Yeah, all that. Man, come on, bro. What did you?
They call him for it. That's what he giving it to him real. That's his shtick. And some of the stuff he be telling him, he ain't lying. But that's just what JoJo was trying to say before. You have to be based in reality and your expectations, and then what you're calling for. You can't be expecting someone to provide for you and your children, or someone to take you seriously if you look a certain way, or if you act a certain way, or if you don't have any ambition or goals.
But the whole reason people want to be involved with somebody in the first place is totally perverse to begin with. You know, you're talking about, oh yeah, I want a high value person who makes such and such amount of money for what? Because of the way it looks, because of the way it makes you look, because of the way it makes you feel. But what about the actual reality of the situation? You know, what are you actually going to grow and build with that income? Or it's essentially, from what I can see, the people who call that show are black people who want to live a white lifestyle, and they want to do so, you know, kind of guilt free, or without the consciousness of doing so. You know, I mean, that's all they want. They just want somebody who's going to help them, you know, live like white people more effectively than they already have. You know, half the females that call on there got the wigs in their head and everything else, got the makeup on to look more like a European person in the first place. So it just comes back to the philosophy of the whole thing. It comes back to your own internal philosophy and your function and why you're here on this planet to begin with. A lot of people don't really even know that. They just know they want their life to look a certain way. As long as their life looks a certain way, it's always about, you know, form over function. You know, no, never mind how it functions, but how does it look? You know.
Yeah.
And nobody got time for that.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, what kind of change are you making? Because that's the other thing. People always, and I mean this as a group of people, regardless if it's just in general. It doesn't necessarily mean based on a certain religion or anything like that, but people constantly complain about what's not being done in their community or where they live at, or that, you know, education and economics and things like that. But if you're not contributing to changing those things, then why complain about them, or why have all this money or all these material things and you're not making any effort?
So they can run away from it. That's why black folks want money, to run away from the reality that we face as a group of black people. Individualism. That's essentially what it comes down to. As long as they have enough money to distance themselves from it, so they don't have to see it, then that's essentially why black people want to make the amount of money that they make. That's what it comes down to.
I don't necessarily agree with that at all.
Running.
Maybe I'm a little too optimistic in that
Running.
one.
They're running.
Because I think that there are some black people who that's not the case. You know, they just may not have ever taken the time to think about this kind of stuff. I mean,
Because they've been running. It's not a secret. Our condition isn't a secret.
no, our condition isn't a secret.
Racism, you know, systematic oppression, white supremacy it's not a secret. It never has been a secret. You
No.
know? But people, you know, they take the steps they can take to distance themselves from it, to run away from it.
But some people may not have ever experienced certain levels of discrimination based on class or socioeconomic status or what have you, or may see things a lot different because they may be coming in from another country where they see there's opportunities and benefits and they enjoy those things, but just never thought about how this affects all of the people that look like them.
I don't know. I mean, everywhere in the world, white folks is running around fucking people over.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Yeah, you're right about that.
But hey, to each their own, I suppose.
I guess.
I guess.
All right, y'all. We are going to end this. We do appreciate y'all coming and listening to our thoughts on this. If you guys have any questions or any comments that you want to add, please put it down in the comments. And if we can address them, we will. If we can't, we'll try to make a show and tell you why we can't.
Yeah. We will be leaving links to all of our websites in the comment section. So
Yes.
feel free to clicky.
Well, it'll actually be in the description section.
Comment, description, where the words go. We'll put the links where the words go. You can clicky and interact on that basis. But this has been the Red Moon Purple Saturn podcast. What's today's date?
Today is May 20.
May.
Ooh, I jumped some. Oh, I jumped so much.
That's why I didn't want to say it, 'cause I was going to get it wrong too.
It's March.
It was March 28th.
Yes, March 28th.
13,021.
Yes, I have definitely skipped a couple months. I guess I want this baby to be out.
I guess so. Well, we will catch y'all on the next one. Everybody stay black, stay proud.
All right. Peace.
See, they've got you by your throat, feeding